Thank you so much for having me. I'm so thankful. Hi, Kamya. How are you, girlfriend? I see you over there, kinda.
I'm very well. I'm so sorry the electricity just went off, so maybe you can barely see my face. But I'm super stoked and super grateful to be here with all of you.
Yes, yes, yes. Me too. Me too. So we have Kamya, we have me. We're still waiting on Rachel and
I'm
Zoe.
here.
So hopefully, there we go. Hi.
Hi.
Yay.
Wonderful to be here.
Nice. Hi, Rachel. How are you, girlfriend?
Wonderful. So excited
Awesome.
to see you all and connect.
Yes, yes, yes. And so now we have Mama Zoe, who we're waiting for. Hopefully she'll be tuning in soon. But in the meantime, while we wait, I'll go ahead and start an introduction just for myself. And by the time Mama Zoe gets here, we'll be able to transition into her. So hello, everyone. I am Raven Marie. I am an international holistic specialist, and I'm also an Iboga co-facilitator over at Awaken Your Soul. It is an Iboga center located in Costa Rica. So if you are someone who is interested in learning more about Iboga and taking that journey, then I invite you to check out that website. So yeah, I am so thankful to be here, having the opportunity to talk to you all about spirituality, psychedelics, spiritual plant medicines. And I feel as if it's such a great conversation to jump into with the 2 days that we've had going on, because for me, I'll be speaking a lot about Iboga, but more so, I was speaking a lot about the importance of living a spiritual life, whatever that means to you, right? It's a very broad spectrum, but I'm excited to dive into all the things. So let's get started. So I'll let you ladies introduce yourselves as well. I'm nervous.
Am I muted?
There you go. You were muted.
Yay! Oh my gosh. My husband is my tech help.
How are you, Mama Zoe?
I'm all right. It's a strange time. I'm good. It's great to see your faces. I love the ladies on this screen. Wow.
We're ready now.
Okay. The tech is always the problem for me. It's not the content, but I've been listening. It's been really interesting to hear some of the other women before us. Mm-hmm. So who's leading here? Raven?
Well, I'm leading. Let's do it. Okay. Well, I wanted everyone to take an opportunity to introduce themselves first. So how about we do that? Rachel, if you wanted to introduce.
Yeah. Sure, I can introduce myself. So I'm really honored to be here with all of you beautiful women. And my name is Rachel Carlovell. I was one of the first grant recipients for the Cosmic Sister Grant, and also studied in Peru with Chris Killam, the medicine hunter, for the Shaman's Pharmacy course. So that's really what got me started in my study of plant medicine as a pre-med student. And so I've since gone on to create Ganjasana, which is a cannabis plant medicine ceremony and workshop that we do using the practices of yoga, meditation, and mindfulness. And then I'm also a regenerative hemp farmer. Co-founder of Suelo Vivo is our hemp and CBD company that will be launching soon at the end of this month.
Amazing. Thank you. That is so incredible. Kamya, what about you, girlfriend? Share.
Yeah, so amazing to meet you, Rachel, and that really warms my heart, because I am from India originally, and cannabis has had such a historic role in our spiritual, culture, but has been lost over time because of colonization. And I absolutely love this, the topic of this panel. And so I actually am an economics graduate. After I finished my degree in the UK, I kind of didn't really feel like I wanted to continue in the matrix and started traveling. And I've been a digital nomad for 5 years. I have my own travel and spirituality blog, mostly functioning on Instagram, but also create a lot of different content and create community projects. And one of the projects that I created in 2019 is Psychedelic Society India, which is essentially the only organization, I think, in India, community group that focuses on creating a kind of safe educational space around psychedelic medicines and entheogens in India. And so we use, of course, before the lockdown and stuff, we did community circles and etc. etc. But we're rapidly evolving into a number of different things. You know, we do monthly kind of community circles, and the aim with this is in India, you know, and this really links the topic of the panel as well today in terms of spiritual indigenous cultures, is that we have really lost touch with our indigenous knowledge. And I really believe plant medicine can have a big role to play in decolonization and helping us connect back with our origins and connect back with nature. So that's me. My Instagram handle is Wandering Kamya, and Psychedelic Sock India.
Wow. Thank you so much, Kamya. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And
Thank you.
Zoe?
Hi, everyone. I'm Zoe Helene, and I'm founder of Cosmic Sister. And I also started psychedelic feminism as a concept. Not that I am the first psychedelic feminist to exist on the planet. I think we've been around ever since there were psychedelics and oppression, and that's a long time. So I'm just happy to be here with these amazing women, and we don't have a lot of time to share a lot of material. So I am kind of hoping for myself to focus a little bit on environmentalism. So with that in mind, how are you planning to, you know, go around the circle again? Let me know when it's my turn and I will launch.
Well, Zoe, I think it'd be great to just have you launch. That feels really, really great. So let's go for it, and we'll chime in.
I feel very safe with the three of you because we know each other, and I think you're all just amazing. And I will say that, you know, when I did start with Cosmic Sister, there were several different you know, dimensions to it, all interconnected. And one was the Plant Spirit Grant, which really was my beginning, the first project. And yes, Rachel is the very first Plant Spirit Grant, which was such an extraordinary experience. We kept it going, and we still want to keep it going. It's really a funding source. We were thwarted by the pandemic, but we do hope to continue because I think it's very important to bring people who otherwise might not be able to go all the way to the Peruvian Amazon and to work with indigenous Shipibo people. And that is multifaceted. There are many reasons to go, including that's where the plant medicine comes from. That's where the plants grow. And yes, they grow on the whole Amazonian basin, but for me, the Shipibo people are where I landed, and I feel very connected with them and know people personally, a lot of people, supporting an amazing young Shipibo woman to go to school. She's getting a college degree in forestry management. And so these are things that, you know, we're supporting them while they support us. It's reciprocity, sacred reciprocity. So for me, it's very important, in part because I'm taking a tangent, but I was listening to some of the women before, and I think what they were saying were very important. But I think accessibility is also very important. However, if we continue to move all of these ayahuasca ceremonies away from the indigenous people who, you know, develop these traditions, then what is left with them? They have this extraordinary opportunity to focus on their spiritual arts. And to, you know, as somebody who grew up in the arts and sciences, when you really are a fine artist and a high scientist, meaning, you know, you really care about the wonders of the world, you know, you want to understand the world better, then the commercial aspect, the aspect of making a living, if you're not born into wealth, becomes a real issue of ethics. And, you know, you're constantly begging for money and you can't focus and you have to do some other job, and then you're bridging worlds. Well, if you're an indigenous or any type of real medicine person in the world, you know, I can imagine you'd want to focus. They also are able to, you know, inspire younger people to teach them. So it's not only the elders, it's the elders passing on this knowledge. I do think it's very important. I also think going to the Amazon jungle, if you can get there, there's nothing like it. There's nothing like being with ayahuasca in the Peruvian Amazon or in one of the Amazonian countries in the jungle. And I know I'm preaching to the converted here on this panel, But I wanted to share that with everyone else. So some people would be saying, well, that's all very nice, but there's no way I can afford it. I think it's worth saving up for. Even if it's 5 years from now or even 10, save up. That's really where to do it. And, you know, I'm not saying that we can't do it elsewhere, but I do think there needs to be reciprocity to the original people, whoever they are. We can't just have these retreats everywhere and not give back. And it needs to be in a real world way. So there's that. Okay. Now I want to launch into what I wanted to launch into. I think I only have a 10-minute slot. So here goes. I hear a lot of people say that these medicines help to reconnect with nature. And so I want to just say, like, we are nature. You know, we are nothing but nature. We are nature. Okay. We are animals living on planet Earth. We're a very strange animal. We have really such potential, and we do really great things, and we can also be extremely destructive and mean to each other. So for me, you know, I've been hearing a lot of people talk about white supremacy, male supremacy. Yes, and yes. There's also human supremacy, which is becoming more important to my work. Just putting it out there is a very ugly word. And I think it's also important because we all are human. So when people throw these words out like white supremacy and male supremacy, sometimes the people on the receiving end of that, like a male, let's say, feel pretty attacked. They personally, as individuals, may not be male supremacists at all. They might be really great. They might be male allies. They might have fought all their lives for the rights of women. You know, sure, they have a different privilege. They can't understand it the way we understand it, but they still might be really great people. So it's important for us to know these are systems, not individuals. And we do carry programming from them. And we talk about microaggressions. There's also like micro informants, right? So our culture keeps on propping up these bad paradigms over and over and over. Sometimes in subtle ways, sometimes not so subtle ways. And it's pretty much impossible to get away from those. So all of us are seeing that every day. So this human supremacy thing is very important. These medicines can help us to help our own selves, you know, with healers, the help of healers, but really we're healing ourselves inside, in my opinion. And the plants are our allies, and the healers are our guides mostly, in my opinion. So it's us first, our relationship with ourselves, which also has to be the relationship with these plants and fungi. That has to be in high relationship first. Then it's relationship with others, right? Our loved ones, the people who we relate to in the world, our families, our friends, even our workmates, you know, that sometimes that could be the toughest. You know, we fight each other. And we do this because we're human. There's no getting around being human. That's who we are. So the best thing we can do is become more and more conscious of that on a daily basis. And as a community in the psychedelic scene and the cannabis scene, because anybody who's new to psychedelics out there, remember that cannabis is also a sacred plant and a sometimes psychedelic. So I count cannabis in here with this. So, okay, so high relationship with self, high relationship with others, and the sacred plants themselves. Out of that becomes your community, high relationship with your larger community locally, and then outwards from there, and then outwards from there to planet Earth, to all the humans on planet Earth. But then it can't stop there. We're not healed if we're not thinking of the other living beings on the planet on a daily basis, not as an afterthought or of a thought. So if I say one thing today, is that we are living in a time where we must heal and grow and evolve quickly as a species, not just as individuals, but that's all we really have control over, right? In order to help to defend the rights of all the other living creatures we share this planet with, which includes the sacred plants. The plants are also species, they have rights too. So that's it for me, in a nutshell. I have loads of other things to say, obviously. So everyone here could talk for hours and not have a problem with that. So I'm going to stop there because I think for me, that's where I'm sitting with my work.
Yeah. Zoe, thank you so much for sharing that. My goodness, like I can piggyback off of every single topic that you've expressed, and to a little bit, to a certain degree, I absolutely will, because we've had this conversation before, like many times, and so it's very cool to be able to have this kind of conversation where there are a mass of beings who are tuning in and having the opportunity to expand the perception of how we may be viewing plant medicine, psychedelics, spirituality as a whole. Speaking in as far as, you know, really honoring the ways of the ancestral traditions that have created these, or that have held space for these medicines for so long, is what happens is that the more we kind of pull away from the traditions, the more we cut at this and change that and manipulate this, what happens is not only are you losing the ways of the ancestral lineage, but you're also shifting the soul of the actual medicine. These plants are alive, they are spirits, they are so aware. And so when we pull them out of their environments, when we, let's put it here and dissect this, okay, we don't want the purge, let's remove the purge. When we start doing those kind of manipulations, we are like, our progressive minds, we have gotten to the space that we think we know better. And it is so important for us to move in a space of humbling ourselves, to recognize that no matter what we think we know, there is an expansive, infinite space of information. And it's so important for us to bring ourselves back, right? And so I love science, I love medical, I think that all is valid. But if we are missing the voice of the indigenous, if we are cutting out the foundations of which these medicines have been able to sustain themselves for so long so that we can experience them now, then I feel as if we lose out on so much. And so I am a huge advocate of not messing with the plants. Leave them alone, right? Leave them alone as much as you can. Research if you must, absolutely, but nothing will give you the clear understanding than what you will receive as if you tune into the ancestral ways, into the indigenous ways. Like really honoring that is so very important. And somehow in this present state of now, that's being lost. And so finding our way back, having all parts of conversation at the table is so important. Medical facilities, you need to have someone indigenous in the spot, like sharing with you, helping you to understand, why is this important? You know, I was reading something online and they were saying, well, now we've removed the purge. And the purge is so important in the process, whether you're crying, whether you're vomiting, whether you're sweating, like your body is releasing so much in these experiences. And when we cut things out because we don't want that discomfort, well, we're actually kind of like blocking our own healing to a certain degree as well. And so for me, my biggest thing, especially right now, with working with the medicines to the degree that I have, is really tapping into the understanding of living a spiritual life. And what does living a spiritual life even really mean, right? It's to the individual. But the most important aspect that I feel that even the medicines make us aware to, help us to remember, is that like we are sovereign and divine. Like it is in our nature, it is in our blood, our soul is infinite. And so when we begin to understand that, because sometimes we get so locked onto the mind, we get so locked on to our story, we get so locked into our experiences, we get so locked into our pain that we begin to become disconnected from that awareness that our souls are infinite and that everything that is happening is to serve. And so the medicines, they help us to lift the veil, right? They don't do the work for us. No medicine on the planet, I don't care what it is, ayahuasca, iboga, marijuana, none of it does the work for us. They help us to see. They're beautiful tools, but after we leave the ceremonies, after we leave the group sessions, then it's really up to us. How do we apply that? How do we live within the understandings of what these medicines have revealed to us? How do we show up fully in our sovereign whole selves? And that's a very eloquent dance. You know, I am absolutely against ordering medicine online and having ceremonies in your house. I'm absolutely, because for one, you have no idea where the medicines are coming from. You have no idea the nature of the medicines. You have no idea even if it is the actual medicine. And so now that medicines they're becoming more legal, you are having this an access that was not there before. And so you have people that don't really know what they're doing, but they're praying for something, they're hoping for something. And so oh, this is available online now, I'm going to go and buy it. And then they buy it and have a ceremony, and then they have an absolutely radical experience, and they have no proper support, no proper stewarding to understand what they've just experienced. And so it's actually can do more harm than good, right? So honoring the ways of the indigenous and understanding that it is so important for us to slow down, slow down, take a pause, and really humble ourselves, but also get in tune with what's happening on the inside with our hearts. Mama Zoe made a very important point. We're not apart from nature. We are nature. We are absolutely one with nature. It is our truth. And so right now we are in a society of living where we are so connected to social media and to all things electronics, and we don't really go into nature a lot, and we're just so caught up in the hustle and bustle and go. And quarantine did a very powerful service to us by putting people in very uncomfortable states, right? We're taught to get up and go. And so all of a sudden this need to go was no longer there, and all we had was our stuff. And you have a lot of people who are in this present state right now who are realizing, my goodness, I have so much stuff that I need to really address, that I need to really heal, that maybe I've been ignoring for a very long time, and I can't do that any longer, right? We have to really take that time to really tune in to what's happening within us. One of the previous talks was saying that, plant medicines and psychedelics is not for everyone. That is very, very, very true. It is not for everyone. So you have to be very clear about where you are in certain, decision makings as far as like if you're going to take that kind of journey. Iboga per se is a very, very, very powerful plant medicine that's really about your total life review. And it can be very uncomfortable for people who, they're not really ready to really look at their stuff. And so being mindful about the kind of medicines that you are saying yes to, being mindful about the providers that you are sitting with, and being mindful about where you actually really are in your own journey is so imperative towards spiritual liberation and, and growth, right? I believe so hugely that it's so important for us to find a space of, when we begin to heal on the inside, when we begin to really acknowledge what is happening within, what happens is the more we begin to become conscious about our internal world and heal our internal world, we then become more aware of those around us. We begin to care more about those around us. It's a domino effect. It really does start with you. It starts within. And so we're all tasked with this grand opportunity right now to really do some life review, to really acknowledge and take accountability for what's happening within us so that we can show up better for our sisters and our brothers and our neighbors and all of those around us, and so that we can essentially show up better for the world, right? Because there is a huge disconnection that is happening between us humans and world. And we forget that it's all just like one whole thing, right? And so plant medicines have a beautiful way of bringing us back to that realization. They have a beautiful way of lifting the veil. They have a beautiful way of bringing us back home to ourselves. And that is a big focus of my work, helping my clients come back home to themselves, because this is the most sacred place. This is the most sacred space you'll ever find yourself in, more than any church, more than any mosque, more than any circle. This is your most sacred space. And so honoring that and finding ways to nurture that is such a beautiful task that we're all on this journey in together. So that's what I'll speak on and share with that. Yeah.
Wow. So good. That was amazing.
Yeah, you just helped me integrate my whole year. Like so many amazing points for us to really like the core of it, what you said, that really it starts from ourselves. And this whole year has been about us really looking at our stuff that we're going through, you know, the chaos that we're going through, the confusion, I think it's very easy for us to forget that, you know, spirituality is not just about love and light and, you know, wow, like all this like unicorns and daisies, but this really kind of like, and it's difficult, you know, and you have to keep coming back. It's a continuous process. You know, a lot of people have this misconception that psychedelics are a magic pill and I'm suddenly gonna become enlightened and spiritual, or even worse, they think they are. Whereas, you know, like you said, it is a continuous journey of coming back, and something that me also, I'm integrating new lessons or the same lessons again and again. And it is an incredibly humbling experience to go through that. So shall I share a little bit on seeing I'm already speaking, shall I share my bit? My battery
Absolutely
has gone. My battery is gone, but I still have 50% battery. So yeah, thank you so much for giving me this space, and I absolutely love the topic, and you know, the topic being psychedelics, spirituality, and sacred medicine. So the kind of position I come from is, as I mentioned, you know, I'm a British Indian, I'm a Hindu, and the Hindu culture, well, the term Hindu is actually given to us by colonizers. It's actually Sanatan Dharma, which means eternal way, the way of life, the way of nature, the way of the cosmos. And so I really believe the first thing that I want to share is the way that psychedelics, as Zoe mentioned earlier, it being taken out of their indigenous context really disconnects us from the true meaning and the true medicine that we can receive from these plant medicines. And as Raven, you know, with the iboga, which, you know, is you know, such I can't even imagine people that want to order this at home and sit by themselves, which could be incredibly dangerous. And so the kind of like just like extending forward from that point is the understanding that all spiritual systems, all indigenous systems, it's impossible to separate psychedelics from their indigenous origin. It is impossible to separate psychedelics from the spiritual experience, because ultimately at the end of the day, you know, they help us expand our consciousness. And so if done in a way that is kind of haphazard, that is not in respect with the plant, that is not with intention and true purpose, then of course, you know, like we don't have any system. And so because we have lost our spiritual systems over a period of time, the Incas were wiped out, the Mayans were wiped out. Now the Hindu civilization is the last living ancient civilization that still exists in such large numbers. The city of Benares in India is the oldest continuously living civilized city in the. So it's really like, I believe necessary for us, as much as going on the kind of West scientific explorers and in the, are they, like you mentioned, manipulating the medicine? You know, the real knowledge, that is like 1%. The real knowledge that these plants that give us access to the systems that we had, you know, whether it's the, you know, the ancient Africans, whether it's the ancient Egyptians and Kemet, or it's ancient India, you know, we all had this, and, you know, without us really kind of at least putting some effort to understand this, you know, I believe that you know, they can even take us further away from ourselves. And so, you know, coming back to that point of what is the purpose, right? What are psychedelics helping us to do? Psychedelics are helping us to reconnect with ourselves, helping us to, you know, heal our trauma. They're helping us to decondition. And so I feel like in order for us to really get the most out of this process, you know, for us to be able to integrate our experiences, you know, we need to understand, you know, our consciousness, you know, what is happening in our energy when we take psychedelics in the context of systems that provide us with this understanding. For example, I'll give you an example, Kundalini, right? So there's a retreat in Peru called Tantraya Center. And the facilitator there is an English guy, but he's, you know, studied in Tibet, and he studied and studied in Peru. And so he teaches Qigong exercises along with his with ceremony to help people understand how can they move their own energy. How can you access psychedelics and altered states of consciousness through your own practice, through spiritual practice. And so, I really look forward to seeing a world where, we're not simply like this extractive capitalism mindset of trying to extract something from the plant, extract something from the experience, but this type of humility where, like you said, Raven, we don't know anything. We are here to learn. Like our ancestors really, we are blessed that we have such a lineage from across the world, and we're all from the same source at the end of the day, whether it's from this country or this country. And so that kind of brings me to my second point. There was two things. The second point being the whole kind of issue on activism, right? So there's often this kind of understanding that in the say new age spiritual community that you cannot talk about certain things, or talking about say the persecution or the genocide of indigenous cultures is hate speech, or you have to align with certain some of these barriers that and some of these new age spirituality has given us, because it's everything forefront. You face inside, you're not able to create face extreme generations, right? We all carry ancestral trauma in our body. And so, I believe this kind of shift that we're talking about right now, this shift of consciousness from the 3D to the 5D, what is this shift? It's about moving from kind of individualism to a kind of understanding that we are a collective consciousness, that by us showing up in the world as our authentic selves, we are helping to heal the planet, that we do not all need to think the same. We do not all need to have the same life purpose, or have the same beliefs, or have the same anything, but understanding that we are connected internally. And so this whole kind of shift from us, the separation, the division, the duality, and moving to a space, I believe, where psychedelics can help us integrate, both the and so, if that is to happen, I believe, like Zoe mentioned, it's really important that we understand the right way to work with these medicines, where we have the support systems, and definitely in a place like India, and I'll by giving you a little, because I'm from India, I should probably speak a little bit about it. So we have such a rich history and culture. We have such a rich medicine system. We have Ayurveda. We have an understanding of the different layers of our dimensions of being. Our connection with the spirits of everything in the universe. And I've been so blessed to experience so many things in this country. But unfortunately, over time, what's happened, because of course the colonial and the British Empire, is that funny, because I'm actually have a British passport, but it's people have really been disconnected from their art, emulate the West, but the West.
I'm sorry, we're missing this.
Kamya, you're breaking out, and we're like so into what you're saying.
Oh, we have to reconvene. We need to do this again. There's so much there. I've been very fortunate to hear some of this privately, and it's so great. But you are really coming in and out. It's so
really
so beautiful what you're sharing.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah, now you're good.
Okay. So, in India, because we've been colonized for so long, is that people have really been disconnected from their origins and are on this kind of, it's like they've forgotten who they are. Many people living in their cities, they feel disconnected. And, it's like, how we have, say, in Kupanyang or Bali, we have these spiritual communities where, you're free to explore, you're free to experience and expand yourself. There's nothing really, like that. Of course, we have so many ancient locations where we can go and live in ashrams and learn Vedic culture, etc., etc. But there's a big kind of gap between the modern and the ancient world in India. And so I really believe that, psychedelics, especially in countries that have been through colonization, can help us kind of bridge the divisions to bring us together, understand each other, understand different points of view, different forms of suffering, and of course help us connect back.
Oh dear. Well, that's a shame because she's so wonderful. So, okay.
I was on the edge of my seat, like, more.
I know. It's interesting too. Kamya was, I don't know if you can hear us, Kamya, but this idea of like those other countries who have been colonized or who have been through colonization, isn't that most cultures? I mean, not every, but
yeah, not many.
Even if you look at the Brits, I mean, for real, you look at the Brits and you look at their pre-Christian spiritualities, it's quite different. I mean, I don't know a lot about it, but I know it's different. And I mean, the Mist of Babylon, I realize is a historical fantasy, but it is about the ancient British and the changeover, and that happened all across the British Isles. And so even they have endured this homogenization, this oppression of nature gods and goddesses and any other kind of open, interesting, mystical, spirituality. So I think that that's something to say. The word, the concept of colonization is such a large concept. It's different everywhere, a little bit different in different times. My ancestry is ancient Greek, and that also our word for the Greek, same as you, Kamya, it's like, that's not our word. It's a name given to us by the conquerors, and that's common across everywhere. So I remember being 19 years old in our village, which is our tribe. It's just another name, Horio, Trebos. Trebos is tribe. And I was there for when they changed the name formally from Arakova, which was the Turkish name for our village, which the Turks were extremely brutal for a very, very long time, centuries, to Keria, which is the original name, which goes so far back that it's practically the indigenous Greeks. It is the indigenous Greeks, really, but if you go back to the very first ones, they traveled from one place to another, but they were the same people. So I understand from that heritage, and some people will say, well, that doesn't count, that's so long ago. Well, it isn't for me. And my family, my actual grandparents, who I knew very well, and many aunts and uncles, my family in my lifetime was greatly affected by that, because they were refugees fleeing what had happened to the country. I mean, the country was not safe for the original people anymore. They had no choice. Little like the Tibetans who had to flee. You at a certain point, you don't want to leave the homeland. I mean, it was a paradise little village. It still is. They had everything they needed. They often lived to be well into their hundreds because it was so healthy. And then, of course, that village, even when I was there, was extremely patriarchal and Christian. So, you have to go way, way back to see these, pre-colonizing forces. And we do this to each other all over the world right now. In China, this is going on with the Uyghur people. They're not just being oppressed, it's genocide, for real genocide. It's not, this is, again, I know it's not my turn, so it's Rachel's turn, but I will say, this is part of being human. We do these things. We need to address that. Just like when we're looking at ourselves in the Maloka or the teepee or the Timino, or wherever you're working with your sacred plants or fungi, we look at the things about ourselves that we can improve. And often they are programming, but whatever it is we can work on ourselves, we need to work on as a species. We know that right now there's a shooting. It seems like every week or more, there's a shooting in the United States. I mean, what is that? Okay. That is something we need to address as not just a nation, but as a culture. And it goes beyond the United States, because in the United States, we spread that culture. around the world. We were really good at spreading that kind of thing with our, our movies, TV, etc. Our pop culture is very powerful. So we need to shift that. We need to look at what we do that needs to be improved, and we need to do it now. Yeah. So Rachel, I'm going to pass this on.
I think absolutely shifting the culture through you working with our plant allies in this space of reciprocity, and also to hint back on what Kamya was saying in regards to Ayurveda, which is the science of life, and really seeing these as tools. I know we talk a lot about integration, the after work from plant medicine, but I think what's also so important is the pre-work before you go to sit, and making sure that you have a whole base of tools, from understanding how to breathe, pranayama. That's one of the first things that you might lose when you're working with plant medicine, is your breath, your sense of self. When we're afraid, our breath becomes short and shallow. So if we have a breathing practice, we can come back to that practice when we're working with our plant allies. The same with the sense of asana, yoga, how you move your body. I remember the first time I sat with ayahuasca, I was in, what they call being stuck in the bucket. You're hunched over and my hands were kind of going into like a rigor mortis. But when you understand about mudras and you can use these tools, they affect your experience during the journey, during the time when you work with the plant medicine. So it's really important to cultivate these tools and have a practice before you go sit with the plants. Also mindfulness. John Kabat-Zinn defines mindfulness as paying attention to the present moment without judgment. So if we know how to cultivate that sense of staying right here, right now, and any time we're working with the plant medicine, we'll be able to have a really healing journey where, of course, we're tapping into our most essential self, where we are the healers. And the other side of that aspect of plant spirit medicine and psychedelics that I wanted to touch upon is the planet. We wouldn't have any plants if it wasn't for the soil. And I know this doesn't get brought up so often in psychedelics, but I'm a huge proponent to talk about the soul of the soil. The soil is what is growing these plants that we're then going to be working with. And so I work a lot in the cannabis and hemp industry as well. And what we're seeing right now is really a reductionist type of science. And I know you're speaking about that too, in regards to removing the purge, right? We're reducing it to the cellular and the molecular level. And that's not the way that nature intended. Everything from creating artificial chemical compounds to they're growing cannabinoids and terpenes in a lab from a yeast mold. So I would love to think about how would that affect someone's psychedelic experience if you're having a lab grown cannabinoid versus a holistically grown plant from the soil. And the other ways in which we practice our farming techniques to cultivate these plants. I know a lot of indigenous cultures work with their own techniques, from permaculture to what we call regenerative farming, where you're closing all the loops in your system. As things began to legalize, we're just replicating our detrimental farming techniques that we already have. You can see it in the cannabis industry right now. They are monocropping, which is one genetic species growing in straight lines, and approaching it in the same way of which here in the US, how we grow corn, wheat, and soy. And so if we're growing plants in that way, are they going to have the same effects as our plant ally if we're using pesticides, fungicides, herbicides? Because that is what is going to be ingested into our body. So to be very mindful of not only the way the plant was grown, but of course, who grew it as well. And then the next step of harvesting and creating the medicine of the plant. So as you're speaking about, you wouldn't want to buy something online from some random person. We know, especially in ayahuasca, there's a lot that goes into making the brew and the prayers that you put into it and your intention that the ayahuasquero puts into that brew that you are then ingesting. That is the spirit of the plant. And so to take this even back further, all the way to the spirit of the soil, to the soil food web. We're talking about all the species on the planet and humanism. We're not above that which is below us. As above, so below. So really making sure that we are so mindful and participating in the soil. When you put your hands in the soil, it activates the marma points on your hand. It activates your own microbiome. And this is all part of the process of psychedelics, of that plant medicine. And so when we remove ourselves, maybe in a stark room, as we talk about psychedelic therapy, where a lot of people are moving into a more clinical setting, we're taking ourselves away from nature. And that's never how we've traditionally worked with plant medicines. And of course, we want to make sure that there is access and responsibility in the use of these plant medicines, but making sure, as we spoke about, respecting the elders from which the plant medicines come. As we've just legalized mushrooms in Oregon, I know Denver, I'm out in Colorado, just legalized psilocybin, but who's to say who's responsible to dispense it or to hold ceremony? Do you have to have a certain degree or a psychedelic therapy degree to hold that space for people? Well, then would the traditional people still qualify for that space holding? So really just making sure that we can uphold these traditions and not lose them as we move into this capitalistic society where why would someone create an artificial compound so they can patent it? We saw people patenting the use of holding hands or sitting on a comfy couch using psychedelics, that company that was trying to patent that. And that sounds crazy, but this is the direction that psychedelics is moving. This is where we're going. And so I'm here to speak for the soil food web, and also to help be that bridge between our ancestors and how they worked with plant medicine and how we can adapt in this modern world and society today.
Yay.
Wow. Thank you, Rachel.
Like
this
I said,
is such a good conversation.
It would just, we could keep going. I think we're out of time, but I wanted, if you don't mind, I wanted to toss in a couple of things. I was thinking about my culture, my matrilineal line too. You know, this is really a cannabis scene coming into psychedelics, and you know, even that it wasn't at the very, very beginning, but it was still in ancient Greece. They were working with cannabis. It was called asterion, little star, like the leaf is a little star. And I was also thinking of when you said the breath, you know, I guess what I'm getting to is that each of these indigenous cultures that work with these plants for a long period of time, what we have in common is we're humans. So we're going to arrive at similar things with these plants and fungi as we work with them. So the Greeks had a goddess that was associated with breath, and that was Hestia. She is spirit or breath. It's very similar. It's also center, your center, the center of the home, the center of the tribe, the center to come back to circle home to be grounded. So, but she's ultimately breath. And also, I don't want to leave without just saying that we call this psychedelics, which happens to come from my culture. So psyche is a goddess, but also it means, the best possible definition I've come up with, and I've researched a lot, is that which animates us, our bodies. So when we say mind, body, spirit, it's similar to that, but it's like, if our bodies are our bodies even ourselves if the psyche is gone, really gone? I don't think so. I think that's why we are called vegetables in a hospital environment when our bodies are being kept. I know when I, have had to put a very, very sweet animal companion to sleep, that when their psyches left their body, I cried for their their body, because I love that little body, but it was their psyche. It was somewhere else. I didn't feel that it was gone. And yes, they've shown up in ceremony, but that is what we're talking about here. That is what psyche means. Nobody can pronounce it, so I understand. Psyche is fine. But yeah, it's a Greek word, and it too was colonized by males who came up with the idea of psychedelics from my culture, and they were non-Greeks, and that's okay. But they were. Let's be honest, and they reduced it to mind. And it is absolutely not mind. We are not mind and body. We are so much more. So I just wanted to put that out there, because it's what we all are. I think we're all kind of playing with this. We're circling this. Rediscovering, reclaiming our femininity as well as our indigenous aspects, and where these traditions really came from. They're not new.
No, they're not. It's always interesting when we hear New Age, the statement New Age, because if anything's New Age is what we're doing now, because these teachings and these medicines and these deep understandings are thousands of years old. So we're the New Age kids, when we are dealing with our Western ways of operating and colonization. That's very New Age. What I wanted to do before we close is that there were a few questions that were placed inside of the Q&A. I'm not sure if we have time, but there was one question in particular that really stuck out to me, and I wanted to know if we have time to answer this question. Do we have time? No one's saying anything. I'm going to take that as a yes. Okay. Okay, so here is the question, ladies. This is from Juliana. I would love to hear the panelists acknowledge the systems of oppression that many people live in and how that undeniably influences the healing process. Often this community seems to be based on healing for privileged folks only, which is a continuation of colonization. So I would love to hear how those working in this community can support healing for marginalized communities. That is such a good question.
That's the heart of my work. I mean,
it really is.
Don't know where to start.
Really is. I'm going to keep my answer short, but also very much direct, because Mama Zoe, we have actually had this conversation before. As someone who is working with the plant medicine Iboga, my father's lineage is from the Congo of Africa. Equatorial Africa is West Africa, is where this plant, this beautiful sacred medicine, it originates from. And so being an African-American woman, working, finding myself on the path of working with this beautiful medicine, I also noticed that there were not a lot of me's happening over here in the United States. I think the Spirit Plant Medicine Conference that I spoke at last year, I was the first African-American woman to speak about Iboga on that platform. And so that was really huge. And it was actually in my last Iboga ceremony where, I wanted to take my time with the medicine. I was not in a rush to become a provider. I'm still not. But after you've seen about 200 processes of people and you've gone through your own process as well, you start to have a very deeper understanding and relationship with this medicine. And for me, I definitely agree with you, Juliana. Most of the plant medicines, they are geared towards people who can pay $3,000 for a ceremony, $4,000 for a retreat. You go into the community like one I grew up in the hood of Birmingham, Alabama. And I'm telling you, no one speaks about trauma when they speak about, what we experience, what we see there. And so if I go into that community and I say, hey, there's something that can help you. It can really help you to transform. It can help you to heal a lot of this ancestral pain and wounding that you're carrying within yourselves. However, it's $4,000. Well, that shuts the door on a lot of people, because the fear and the programming around lack mentality and the reality of what is being experienced is going to shut that door very, 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 very fast. And so my last journey with the medicine was where I came into the understanding that, yes, providership is absolutely where I was moving to. And Iboga made it very clear, you're going to serve me, but you're not going to make a single dime. You're not going to make any money off of serving me. And I'm going to show you the way and the sense of how to make this happen. How that's going to happen, I have no idea, Juliana, no clue at all. However, what I do know is that my goal, my purpose, and my journey with this medicine is to bring the medicine into marginalized communities, because I know that my people need it so much. You know, speaking of colonizations, I mean, hello, you know, you look at me and you see this light skin, and, you know, going through historical and like digging through our ancestral records, this is a reflection of my great grandmother, who was raped by her master and bore 4 of his children. So, you know, there are things that I have to reconcile, you know, within myself. And so I understand that, you know, all of us, so many of us have these same things, these same programmings that they're having to address and acknowledge. And, you know, it's not easy. I have no idea how I'm going to make it happen from my end, but I do know that there are programs, there are offerings, there are all kinds of platforms and communities of people who are getting together to provide the resources, whether it's through a scholarship experience or, you know, an offering of such. But that is something that is happening. You know, it's a slow process, right? But it is a process nonetheless. And so I hope that gives you some form of like hope. Yeah.
I would love to add to that very briefly. I can see we're just about to finish. So just wanted to.
You got your lights.
Yeah, I got lights again. Yeah.
Thank you.
Like with dealing with marginalized communities, you know, I believe that's really one of the most important things right now on the planet, not just, you know, because indigenous communities are being wiped out, our ways of life are being threatened and wiped out, but because it's essential for the survival of the planet. And so my own, you know, in my own life, how I've integrated this is understanding that, you know, the having a focus, having a niche. I'll give you an example, like say, for example, you know, the population of Hindu people in Pakistan is reduced from 47 to 2%. You know, the ongoing elimination of indigenous people from their land, it continues to this day. And so I've really thought deeply about, you know, like you said, you know, healing is often accessible to privileged people, the people living in dire poverty, you know, living on the streets in India. They're not really going to be able to access plant medicine. And so when I think about targeting that problem, it comes down to, you know, expanding the meaning of healing in a way that, you know, we integrate this in a systematic way. You know, how do we create more education for people? You know, how can we create networks to support people? You know, how can we come up with projects, ideas that can bridge this gap between, you know, this kind of privileged spirituality thing that we have going on in many places in the world, and the people that really need access to healing the most. And I think at the end of the day, it comes down to us, you know, following our dharma, essentially following our life path, and doing, you know, just picking up 1 or 2 tangible things we can do, and helping to reach out, you know, giving back in some way. And I think that starts with you know, the way we treat our medicines and the way that we give back to the indigenous communities across the world.
I know we're going to get caught up, but I just want to say, someone just said the term marginalized is not current, it's equity deserving communities. I like that a lot better. There are problems with the word marginalized, but I think that, you know, a lot of my work is trying to put ideas out into the culture. And one of them is this sacred reciprocity also has to do with funding. Like, don't just talk about this, but we, for example, have set up a system which is tax deductible for anyone who is privileged enough to have anything extra. You don't have to be like Bezos, you know, you can be somebody who has an extra $100 every month, or once a year, even, just whatever according to your means. But there are people who have a great deal of money, and they're making a great deal of money in cannabis, and they're making a great deal of money now in psychedelics. Please consider, we have set this up so that we can bring or support people's journeys in a safe setting, so that they then can bring that healing to their communities. Please help us. Yeah, we can't do it alone. I'm privileged in many ways. I live in the United States. I'm alive. I have an education, etc. I have parents who love me. These are real, true privileges to me, but I'm not wealthy. And I've put a great deal of my own personal money into this work, but I need help. You know, so people out there, you know, It's not an idea. This is not an idea. This is a reality. So if you really want to help, chip in. If you've been healed by these medicines, chip in so that others can be helped by these medicines. Chip in so that voices like Raven can get up on the stage. That was one of my purposes. Is like, you've got a beautiful voice for Iboga, but yes, I don't know any other African, African American, if you will, or a person of African descent who has spoken about Iboga. So for me, that is also medicine, getting you up on that stage. Even if it was virtual, it was awesome. And you're not the only one, it's just in Iboga so far. It's the only one. So this is part of what we do. And we're not alone. Others are doing this too. Please help. A little goes a long way.